वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचानूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
Hi, and welcome to Geeta Girl. My name is Sharmila, and the Geeta Girl podcast is about how to live skillfully and be your best self by using the advice in the Bhagavad Gita. Jai Shri Krishna, Shayla.
Jai Shri Krishna, Sharmila, and welcome to this second podcast on setting boundaries. There is just so much to share and talk about when it comes to discussing boundaries. So we are looking forward to delving more into that in this podcast as well as upcoming podcasts.
In our last episode, the question kept coming up, where do I draw the line and create a boundary? That's a question we all struggle with. When is enough enough? Where do I draw the line?
I think this is the most difficult thing. I think communicating your boundary is not always easy, but once you've established that boundary, I feel like communicating it to people becomes a little bit easier. But just where do you draw that line? Like sometimes people push you and that's good. And sometimes people push you and it doesn't allow you to evolve or change or grow or deepen that relationship, and it becomes more hurtful to you. So really looking forward to hearing from the Geeta about any sort of tricks and skills and tools we have on figuring out what is an acceptable boundary to set. How do we know what that is?
Tricks and tips and tools. That's what the Gita is all about. So where and when exactly do I draw the line? In chapter 12, verse 15, Lord Krishna says, don't agitate the world and don't let the world agitate you. And a lot of people feel that means you just sit there and take what's thrown at you and you sit there like the Buddha and you're totally enlightened and nothing bothers you and you don't do anything about it. That is one way of dealing with it if all of us were totally enlightened. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm certainly very, 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 very far from being enlightened.
Very far.
So
for me, not for you. You're way closer.
No, I'm not. You see me, Shayla, as my teacher self, as sort of my, when I'm really my best self. You should see me at home. I'm a bit of a maniac. But I'm glad you clarified that. Thank you. So, chapter 12, verse 15, don't agitate the world and don't let the world agitate you. A more realistic interpretation, a more useful interpretation is that when you sense yourself getting agitated, when you sense yourself lashing out or starting to feel resentful or getting angry or getting overwhelmed, check in with yourself and see, is it boundary time? And the same goes when the world is agitating you, when people are harming you, when it's, like you said, Shayla, not pushing you to think about your actions, think about what you can do better, but when it's actually insulting, offensive, harmful, again, check in with yourself and think, is it boundary time here?
Those are great questions to ask yourself. And I think differentiating it the way you just did, this is really about listening to your gut.
Lord Krishna says, I love those words. Don't agitate the world. When you are lashing out, that kind of, I'm so agitated that I need to like blow off steam. That's a big cue that this is something that's now imposing on your boundaries. And when somebody is doing that similar thing to you, when they are lashing out to you, not calmly saying, hey, you know what? This is something to think about. I think maybe your behavior here was something that can be improved on, or your performance and actions in this arena is something that maybe you need to work on and improve on. No. When they are deliberately agitating you, I love that word, agitation.
Yes.
your emotions and other people's emotions, when it gets to the agitation level where it's a little bit out of control, that's the signal that it's time to consider drawing the line and creating a boundary.
Thinking about it as we're talking, it's important to bring up here that we talked about why meditation is so important for so many reasons, but one of the reasons was to clear your mind so that you can focus on your own personal growth. And I think in this situation, it is also to clear your mind so that you can more effectively listen to your gut. You can more effectively listen to your instinct that is telling you when you are being agitated. This is, as I said, another good place for meditation in terms of skills and tools that the Geeta shares to be able to do some of this work, clearing your mind so that you can better listen to that inner voice.
I love that you brought this up, Shayla, because the next verse I wanted to talk about was chapter 2, verse 58, which is the one which has the tortoise analogy, that you take a pause, you think, okay, I'm getting agitated, I'm getting a little out of control, or the other person is getting agitated and their behavior is out of control. Let me retreat to safety. Even the ability to understand when you're agitated starts with meditation, and the ability to recollect yourself and get back your equanimity and figure out what to do. Meditation is part of that process as well. Lord Krishna keeps saying in the Gita, without meditation, you're not even going to be able to put into practice all the skills that he's teaching us. I love that you brought that up at this point. Thank you, Shayla.
That tortoise example is also so good too. That kind of retreating into your shell, that safe space, because it's good to give yourself that time so you can reflect a minute and say, okay, I felt uncomfortable, and now I'm going to set this limit on what I am willing to do, or what I'm willing to listen to, or what I'm willing to take, whatever that limit is for you. But sometimes you need a pause to do that. You can't do that right in that moment.
Not impulsively.
Exactly.
The next verse I'd like to talk about, and again, one that we talked about in the last episode, is chapter 17, verse 19. Another question to consider when you're thinking about where to draw that line, when to create a boundary, is, are you allowing someone else to deliberately hurt you? That's the question. A lot of times we put our head in the sand and say, you know what, they don't know any better, and maybe they didn't mean it. Sure, maybe once or twice. But if they continually hurt you, whether wittingly or unwittingly, it's not about them, it's about you. You are deliberately allowing yourself to be hurt. And Lord Krishna says that's a big no-no, because that's hurting the divine in you. And in order to protect the divine in you, which is your duty and your right, it's time to create a boundary. This is something important to think about.
I really love that, because I will speak for myself. I don't draw that boundary very solidly because I want to avoid that confrontation.
Right.
Because I think I'm preserving the relationship by doing so, but I'm not. Because what it does is I am quiet about it because I don't want to confront the person, but it certainly breeds some resentment. And that's not protecting the relationship. And I will inevitably lash out at that person in some way. So I'm harming the divine in me, and I'm harming the divine in that other person.
Yes.
I'm not setting that boundary and communicating it effectively. You think sometimes when you're quiet that you are being protective, but sometimes the exact opposite is happening.
Yeah, sometimes your quiet is actually complicit.
Absolutely.
Another important reason why we should set boundaries, in chapter 3, verse 8, Lord Krishna says that without addressing your own physical and mental needs, you can't maintain your mind and body and perform your duty. Part of maintaining your physical and mental needs is also protecting yourself, right? Without protecting yourself and maintaining your physical health, your mental health, you can't do your duty. I need to
protect my mental and physical well-being so that I can perform and do the tasks that I'm supposed to do. Drawing the line, it's actually part of your duty.
So for me, this is a new way of thinking about things. It's this idea that when you are protecting yourself and maintaining these boundaries with others is a way to keep yourself from harm. Because I mean, the idea of it made me uncomfortable, and I was always focused on how the other person was going to feel when I was setting the boundary rather than focusing on how setting this boundary really allows myself to take care of my mental and physical well being. And most importantly, I think giving myself space to grow really by saying, this is what I will allow, and this is what I will not allow, and this is where I will stretch myself, and this is where I won't. Like, that's my own personal growth. And it's mine to choose and also mine to communicate to others. We've talked about how individual boundaries are. So you really can't expect the other person to know what your boundaries are either, right? Unless you've communicated them. And a friend of mine recently said to me, you don't need permission from anybody else to define what your boundaries are. That's your own personal boundary, but you do have to communicate it. Because to make an assumption that somebody is going to know where it is and then get upset at them when they don't is unfair and creating agitation and inviting agitation into your life. And so once you've had a chance to determine what that line is, like maybe you're doing too much for somebody, maybe they're asking too much and you don't feel like you're getting something in return, or maybe you feel like the way they are communicating with you is not appropriate. Whatever you've decided is the way you want to be treated, and whatever you've decided you're willing and capable of doing for somebody else is 100% up to you, but needs to be clearly communicated.
That is a fantastic point, and it's a great segue into the next two verses that I had picked out in the Geeta. Everyone, to a certain extent, is going to be ignorant of what's going on in your mind, right?
I love that.
Nobody's a mind reader.
That's right.
I keep telling my husband, I have not been blessed with reading your mind. That was not in my job description when we got married, and I don't have psychic powers. The point is, nobody can read what's in your mind. You have to communicate it. Chapter 3, verse 33 says that everyone sees, acts, thinks, interprets according to their own nature. They're going to see, act, think, and interpret according to their mindset, according to what they see with their eyes, and they hear with their ears, and they think with their brain, not yours. So don't judge others. Only you can see things from your own perspective, which must be inherently skewed because it's the perspective of one, not the perspective of the 9 billion people on the earth. So non-judgment is key. You do you express from your perspective, and don't expect anyone else to read your mind.
I think this is such an important point, and I really love that this verse really respects the individual. I just think it's wonderful. And I think everyone has their own unique parameters, right? Between my husband and I, my husband has very sort of wide boundaries. Very little really bothers Sunil. You can really kind of get away with a lot with him. And
Lucky you.
you can ask him for a lot of favors and he'll do it and doesn't feel resentful. He gives a wide berth to different communication styles.
So when you say wide boundaries, I think you mean that his boundaries allow a lot more in.
Yes.
Got it.
And I'm fairly laid back-ish, but I would say that I have some tighter boundaries. But what I think becomes problematic is if I think because he has such wide boundaries that I should also, and I don't want to bring up to him that something bothers me because I'm like, it doesn't bother him. So I shouldn't let it bother me. But that's not fair to either of you again, because you are unique individual people. And in the same way, I respect and really admire that he has these large boundaries. I also have to respect the fact that maybe I don't, and communicate that to him as well. So what other people will allow doesn't necessarily dictate what would you allow.
Back to what your friend said, that it is your responsibility to communicate your boundaries. Lord Krishna says in chapter 3, verse 26, don't unsettle the mind of ignorant people, meaning we can't control other people's opinions, other people's thoughts. It's a waste of our time and energy and leads us to make the wrong decisions. Once you've communicated, this is my boundary, cross it, and these are going to be the consequences. A lot of times people feel that they can talk you out of your boundaries, and if they just push that boundary and shake it hard enough, it'll fall. Other people, they may not like your boundary, but the truth is, other people's opinions, it doesn't belong to you. This is my boundary. This is how I feel in all honesty, and you don't have to agree.
That is so true. And it's also a reminder to all of us to respect other people's boundaries. Like, I know people who have much stricter boundaries than and sometimes it's annoying, like, I mean, I'm like, I feel like I'm giving and giving here, and you are not doing the same because you have more self-care boundaries put up, which honestly is wonderful and great. And I have no business being irritated by it or thinking that they should change their boundary because of what I want. No, I need to respect their boundaries as well.
Good point. But if you are getting irritated and agitated by it, Shayla, then maybe you need to learn something and have stronger boundaries of your own in terms of self-care. Rather than getting irritated with them, maybe it's time for you to be a tortoise and figure out what about it irritates you. Maybe you need more self-care.
You know what? You're 100% correct. That is actually exactly it, because while I say that it irritates me, I'm really mostly jealous of it. That's really the honest truth. And you're right. I mean, I need to actually learn from them instead of feeling like, oh, how come they can have these boundaries that allows them to be more protective of themselves and I can't. Well, I can. And you nailed it, Sharmila.
Yep. My work is done. One person was helped by this podcast, by this episode.
Right.
And it's usually you and me, Shayla, let's face it.
This is like a therapy session for us each podcast.
So we've talked about one kind of boundary where somebody is actively harming you or somebody's behavior is harming you and you need boundaries to look after yourself more. But typically the other scenario where one's boundaries get crossed is where somebody asks too much of you and imposes their needs and wants on you too much.
This is the one that I've been waiting for. I think that this is a really tough one. Obviously, this is a broad generalization, but I think this is a particularly tough one for women. And I think if you have been raised in a more traditional sort of South Asian community, that adds an extra layer of this, because I think there's a lot of obligations in this culture. And maybe I brought up this question in our last podcast, like, how can you tell the difference between what is your duty and what is a boundary that you should set? I think that line, at least for me, becomes very blurred, because there's some things that you have to do that you just don't love to do, but you just do them. There's a lot of things that we do for family, extended family, friends, that not so thrilled about it, but you do it because you feel like that's what you're supposed to do. But when does it become something that is harming you? I don't know the answer to that question.
That's okay, because Lord Krishna has the answer to that question.
Always. I knew I came to the right place.
There's 2 verses I've picked for today's podcast about this topic. There's more than 2 about this in the Gita, but these 2 I love the most. In chapter 3, verse 35, Lord Krishna says, better is performing one's own duty, even though you may not get any praise for it. You're better off just doing your own duty and your own duty alone, because doing the duty of somebody else, even if you perform it well, the duty of another is fraught with fear. And then in chapter 18, verse 47, he goes even further than that. Lord Krishna says, if you do somebody else's duty, the reason why you need to be fearful is because performing somebody else's duty is riddled with sin. And he uses the word sin very, very rarely in the Gita. So what do you think of that? What do you think of them apples?
Does that mean that when people ask you to do something, you should give them the opportunity to do that for themselves? Like if you keep doing something for other people that they're capable of doing, first of all, they're not learning anything, you're not teaching them anything, and you have to kind of think, is this something that is really truly my duty for that person that they cannot do on their own, and I need to be doing this for them, even if we don't always love it, but it's just like part of the job? Or is this something that I should allow them to do for themselves as a way for them to learn and grow and evolve, and also for me personally not to feel resentful? Is that what that means when it says the duty of another is fraught with fear?
Yep.
In chapter 12, verse 20, Lord Krishna specifically says that we are on this planet. The purpose of our lives is to evolve and grow through the daily performance of the tasks and the fulfillment of our duties that it is our responsibility to do here on this earth. Therefore, if you are performing somebody else's duty, you are robbing them of the ability to do their karma and evolve on their own. You are actually preventing them from doing that. So not only are they neglecting their duty, you are enabling them to neglect their duty. And that's a big problem. Their problem of neglect has now come onto you because you have enabled them to do so.
It makes a lot of sense. I think that this is a really tough thing to do, especially when people are asking you to do too much. I think there's sometimes a part of you likes to feel needed. I think a part of you also doesn't believe that other people can do something for themselves. And I think you also just feel like this is my responsibility to do everything for everybody else. And I think it's one of those things. It's a combination of those. And I'm sure there's other reasons why. I'll speak just to being a mom, or I frequently will do something for my kid that they are absolutely capable of doing on their own. And the truth is exactly as you said, you're not doing them any favors because you're not giving them the ability to like grow, evolve, learn new skills, be independent, and also to save yourself from feeling resentful. You do feel like a little put upon when you keep doing things over and over again. Those are important things. I think this requires a little bit of time and reflection because it's really not always so clear where that line should be drawn, at least for me.
Yeah, of course. It takes time and reflection for everybody. That's why we have permission to go into tortoise mode and figure this out.
Yes.
But
True.
back to the motivation of why we do other people's duties. Lord Krishna talks about this in chapter 3, verse 35.
One of the main reasons why people fall into the trap of people pleasing is, as Krishna says, because when they do their own duty, they're not getting any merit. And when they're doing somebody else's duty, they may be getting a lot of merit, a lot of praise. But that creates such a problem. You people please others to feel good about yourself. But typically, when you people please others, you neglect your own duties. So you're creating this facade of being upstanding, responsible, having integrity, but you're actually neglecting the things which do make you responsible, upstanding, and have integrity. In family constellations, they call that icing on a mud pie, or as one of my father-in-law's favorite phrases is lipstick on a pig. Isn't it great? Lipstick on that pig. That's what people pleasing is. I'll give you an example. There's somebody who I've known for many decades who just can't seem to stop themselves people pleasing. And they have done so much for their extended family, catered to their extended family's every whim, that their extended family has become so dependent on this person that the members of their extended family have become willfully and woefully incompetent.
Oh, yes.
That happens.
Absolutely.
And unfortunately, this person's nuclear family, because they have been absent from performing their duties for their nuclear family, or they've done their duties for their nuclear family, but it's in such an unthinking, kind of check the box, rushed way, they've completely eroded trust with their nuclear family. Their nuclear family they don't have respect for them.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to say they don't have respect for them because, I mean, listen, I need to go to like a rehab program for people pleasers. Okay. So this is hitting very close to home, Sharmila. I feel personally attacked. No.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not talking about you. Let's talk about you though.
But all of this rings very true. I mean, it is true. I mean, I think people pleasers, that definitely resonates with me. You do it sometimes because you like the idea that people think that you're a very helpful person or that you're a very capable person. But to your exact point, then you aren't allowing other people to grow and learn skills and do things for themselves. That's not great. And also people can see you as a doormat sometimes and nobody respects a doormat.
Yep.
But one of the reasons that I think that I people please sometimes is because I want to avoid conflict. But the thing is, conflict is still there because you feel resentful that people are walking all over you or asking too much of you, and that impacts your relationship. So you're actually not avoiding conflict. I'm telling this to myself.
Draw that line, people. It's time to create a boundary. Do your duty and stop people pleasing.
But I will say for those of us who are listening, who are people pleasers, to really reflect on why you do it. And what are the benefits to the other person? Why is it not so great or healthy for the other person? And why is it not healthy for you? I think really just think about it. Are you doing it to avoid conflict? Are you doing it because you want some elevated status? Are you doing it because you want people to need you? Really examine the reasons why and think of what are the benefits and what could be some of the harmful outcomes and address it accordingly. But you really have to do some self-examination. I mean, I certainly am.
Well, according to Lord Krishna, what are the harmful effects? It's fraught with fear and sin.
That's right.
That's the harmful effect
Of doing someone else's duty.
Yep. And failing to draw a boundary between what is your responsibility and what is not your responsibility. It's a lose-lose situation.
It really is.
Everyone involved.
It really is. It really is.
It has many, many pitfalls. Number one, if you're doing the duty of somebody else, you are neglecting your own duty on some level. Our own duties, fulfilling our own responsibilities, honestly, is a full-time job, even if it's your own duty to yourself with your self-care. Okay.
Right. Your own duty of self-care. Don't forget that that's also your responsibility.
On some level, our own duties, our own responsibilities are going to take a karmic hit. That's the first problem. And the second problem is, like I said earlier, we're enabling the other person not to do what they're supposed to do and elevate and evolve themselves. And we take the karmic hit for that. We do, because it's simple.
It feels like a little bit of a gut punch to hear that, but it really is true, right?
This is something really important to think about and consider and create a boundary here about what it is and is not my duty to do. And we're not talking here about someone who genuinely needs help, who can't help themselves. We're not talking about teaching somebody skills that they need to learn. We're not talking about helping out somebody who truly is in need. We're talking about taking on the responsibility that somebody else is perfectly capable of doing for themselves, or should be learning on their own how to do for themselves. That's a no-no.
Again, I'll use the job of being a parent, but that job is to raise humans that are capable of taking care of themselves and who have the skills to be good citizens of this world. To grow into that kind of human being and to evolve is critical, and you shouldn't rob them of that opportunity. But the same can be said of anything, right? Like a friend who asks too much. By you not giving them the ability to take care of themselves or do something for themselves, you're also limiting their ability for evolving. The same thing can be said in a work situation. If you're taking on too much at work, you're not giving your coworkers the opportunity to learn new skills. And so I think all of those are important. This is a really good perspective that it's your responsibility to also give people the opportunity and space for growth.
And to empower themselves.
Yes.
By doing their duty. Yes, you're people pleasing them. Yes, you're going to get a lot of praise, but ultimately you are disempowering them. And there's a huge price to pay for that karmically and also physically in the future. You're harming the other person just as much as you're harming yourself.
That's right.
And then where to draw that line again, back to that question, when it comes to your duty, the golden rule is think to yourself, what if everyone in this world was in my position? And if everyone in the world did as I do right now, how would it affect the world? Would the world be uplifted or would it be downtrodden? Think about it.
We hear about people who go to their kids' school and like do all their laundry for them.
If everyone did their kids' laundry in college, you'd have pretty disempowered children. And if everybody did the duty of others, you would have a lot of disempowered people on this planet. It wouldn't be fun for anyone.
Yeah, that's a good tool to kind of check yourself, and that can help illuminate what your decision should be.
Think of boundary setting as an important part of your duty. You're not doing this out of revenge. You're not doing this out of selfishness. You're not doing this out of any other goal than performing your duty to yourself and your duty to others.
We don't often think about setting boundaries as a duty to yourself. And hopefully we've given you tools and insight in this podcast about when to set it, when you're being harmed, when people are asking too much of you, the importance of communicating that boundary so that you're not agitated and you're not putting further agitation out into the world, which I really like kind of reflecting on that. And also giving yourself the space and time to be able to think about and reflect on what your boundaries should be. And that's that great tortoise idea. Just kind of pull yourself into your shell, give yourself a moment of pause and clarity to think about, is this a boundary I should set? And a reminder to respect others' boundaries as well.
Okay, that's it for this episode. And we look forward to talking more about boundaries in the next one.
Yes. And in the next episode, we'll be talking about how specifically to set boundaries with family, and with friends and coworkers, because we know all of those situations are really different. Those relationships and those dynamics are very, very different and require different ways to set those boundaries and different ways to communicate those boundaries. And we would absolutely love your examples and personal stories. So please feel free to share them on our Instagram or Facebook pages at Geeta Girl Podcast on Instagram and Facebook, or email us at sharmila@geetagirl.com to share your stories. And we will not use your name. We will not use the names of the people that you talk about in your stories, but it would be really great to use your stories to help other people and to make this podcast as helpful as possible. So we always love hearing from you. So please reach out.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. We look forward to seeing you next time. Jai Shri Krishna.
Jai Shri Krishna, everyone.
Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kansujanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vandev Jagadguram